Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
San Diego's events calendar is full of flavor. Dig into local wine and food festivals, treat the family to kid-inspired deals all October, and get a taste of glory at the Breeders' Cup World Championship. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tickets are on sale for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic between Grambling and Jackson State. It's the first ever HBCU football game in Vegas. The game is Saturday, October 25th at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Allegiant Stadium website. There will be at least 7 African Americans competing in this year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. 5 women and 2 men. The tournament kicks off on Sunday. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, the number 3 player in the world, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, Taylor Townsend, and Sakia Vickery. In the men's bracket, Ben Shelton, ranked number 6 in the world, and Francis Tiafoe. 2 NFL preseason games on the schedule today. Pittsburgh at Carolina on the NFL Network, and New England at the New York Giants on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are covering current events today, but we're also looking around the world at the impact the current administration is having on continents throughout the world and specifically peoples within those continents. Today's Thursday, and it's worldwide with Josie Matthews on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Josie is the co-founder of the firm based in Johannesburg, South Africa. That's where he is today. Josie has over 30 years experience in the public and private sector. He's lived and worked in England and the United States, as well as across Africa. Early in his career, he was at Hill & Knowlton in New York and at American Express corporate headquarters, where he was the director of state government affairs. He subsequently went to work in Washington, D.C., in the public affairs group at the law firm Washington and Christian, where he represented governments and corporate clients. Since moving back to South Africa in 2013, Josie served on the boards of the South African Post Office and on the board of the Retirement Fund of the Post Office. He also served as special assistant to the Reverend Jesse Jackson on both his presidential campaigns in 1984 and 1988. He served as special assistant to Kara Mosey Braun on her campaign in the United States Senate, has worked on my campaigns over the course of my 17 years in the Congress of the United States. And so if there ever was a person who had global experience and is on the ground in other continents around the world to give us a perspective that matters to who we are here domestically in the United States, here in Los Angeles, is Josie Matthews, live from Johannesburg. Josie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good evening, and thank you for having me, Jesse. Little correction, this evening I'm actually in Cape Town, which is on the coast, a city you know very well because you were here when
it is so beautiful.
President Nelson Mandela was released from prison. You were here at that particular moment, so you know Cape Town, and I know it has particular personal significance for you because you witnessed one of the greatest moments in history in our lifetime.
You know, Jose, I've been so many places with you, and there's so much that I've actually forgotten. The time that we spent in Mozambique with Samora Michel, and in Angola with Jose Eduardo dos Santos and Kenneth Kaunda, and that part of the world. Mr. Babangida, President Babangida in Nigeria. We spent a lot of time on the continent together, brother, and I'm so grateful that that you're a regular contributor on our show.
Thank you.
How do Africans in the present climate perceive the United States, and how do they perceive the American people? And then I want to comment on something I watched very carefully on a debate between one of our most thoughtful scholars, an African-American woman. She debated 20 young conservative Black men, Trump supporters, MAGA supporters, around a circle, and she had them come up one at a time, and she just knocked them all down. It was almost like the Three Stooges. She just kind of lined them up and just slapped everybody at the same time, and that's essentially what she did. But she made the distinction between African Americans and African American identity, and how we are perceived around the world, and how Africans perceive us, and the uniqueness of who each of us are in our respective cultures. We're just not all the same. Jose, welcome forward to the show.
Thank you. I think part of it stems from the United States is a huge country, and now probably approaching over 300 million people. The continent is also huge and it's very diverse. And you'll often find that people of African descent on the African continent know a lot more about the United States than people of African descent who are, for all the reasons we know, who are born, raised in the US and are American, but have very, very little affinity or understanding, except in very, very small numbers of the continent, and an understanding. So we'll tend to look at Africa as a country. So they'll ask you, so how is Africa as a country? As opposed to what's Nigeria like, what's Cameroon like, where's Egypt in relation to South Africa? There's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding and misinformation, misinterpretation about the continent, and that tends to then self-perpetuate itself when you then get leaders saying that, making derogatory comments as the president did, the current president did in his first term, about in the manner in which he described the continent, and that also then tends to reinforce a particular stereotype of the continent. So I think that people still have a lot to be educated on with regards to the continent and the differences, the different cultures that we have. We see on the continent, we have similarities, we have different. As you know, in Mozambique and Angola, they speak Portuguese. In Francophone Africa, they speak French. In Equatorial Guinea, which is the only country on the continent other than Western Sahara, they speak Spanish. And you have these differences in terms of language, as well as their own languages, ethnic languages. I'll call them ethnic languages, but the languages that are particularly unique to each country on the continent. I mean, Nigeria has over 150 different languages with over 200 million people. Their dialects, their languages, and then their subsects of that. People will speak Hausa, will speak Yoruba, will speak Igbo, will speak Fulani. And there's so many differences that the continent has, which makes it so rich in culture and knowledge. Go to Mali, one of the greatest civilizations that emerged on the continent is from Mali. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions that exist about Africa, and some of these misconceptions are perpetuated into myths that then find common currency in the United States, because people tend not to be very well informed and educated about the continent in the way in which Africans are I believe, very well educated about the United States.
Jose, I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listen to KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, more with Jose Matthews. He's going to take us around Africa, and we're going to discuss perceptions of the American people, particularly African Americans, by our brothers and sisters abroad. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Jose Matthews.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things people love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Let's go!
You're still glowing, flirting, grooving. You still got it. But your immune system weakens as you age, making it harder to fight flu, pneumococcal pneumonia, RSV, and COVID-19. Vaccines are a key part of any health routine and help strengthen your immune response. Ask your doctor or pharmacist which vaccines you need. Schedule in minutes at vaxassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. And in this hour, our very special guest is none other than Mr. Jose Matthews. His subsequent work took him to Washington, D.C. in the area of public affairs at the law firm of Washington and Christian. In 2021, Jose was appointed by the National Assembly of South Africa as a counselor on the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, which regulates the technology and broadcasting industry in South Africa. Jose has also served as the group chief executive of the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa, and he is an extraordinary friend and a great friend of the show. Jose, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Jose, we have a tendency in the United States to have a broad stroke when we talk about Africa, particularly as African Americans. You've said within Nigeria, for example, there are literally hundreds of dialects, hundreds of languages, and multiple cultures. And yet here we just refer to Africa in one big broad stroke, ignoring the fact that in Libya and Egypt, our Arab brothers and sisters also consider themselves African in that part of the world. They may not be sub-Saharan African, that is south of the Saharan desert, but they too are Africans. These misconceptions, by the way, play a significant role in our understanding of the continent. And when the president of the United States speaks about Africa in derogatory terms, we must acknowledge that he cannot possibly be talking about the entire continent. In fact, he's not talking about the continent at all. He's probably referring to some kind of Tarzan movie. Is that your thoughts on that as well?
Oh yes, it's a completely misplaced and unfortunate expression of a view. In fact, a view that's not even pre-colonial. It's so antiquated and totally defies all logic and common sense that anybody would want to make such statements that are just a barefaced lie by any stretch of the imagination. So Africa is not only rich in cultures, it's rich in natural resources, it's rich in intellectual capacity. If you go to even some of the hospitals in the United States, you'll find doctors from all over the continent, whether they're from Nigeria, from South Africa, and similarly in England, you'll find some of the most well-qualified nurses. That trained on the continent and have got great experience, and people who have achieved great success as well in business, in banking, who come from the continent and are very, very successful. And that sort of view is actually so outmoded that I don't think we should really even spend any time talking about it, because you and I both know from our own personal knowledge and the privilege that we've had in traveling across the continent over the last 45 years, that we know how rich the continent and diverse it is, and that those kind of ideas, sort of a Cecil Rhodes type mentality that just sees Africa as some sort of outpost somewhere, that does not reflect the reality of the situation.
I remember when you and I were traveling with Reverend Jackson to Cuba, and we met with Fidel Castro, and he took us to the Isle of Youth, where they were training doctors and medical professionals from the continent to return to the continent. And they were producing more doctors and health professionals than any other country in the world. But most importantly, they were providing a vital need on the African continent in ways that the United States, in ways that the West itself, including Western Europe, was not providing. And yet we had this period during the Cold War where the United States had positioned itself against Cuba, against Fidel Castro, certainly during the Kennedy era, and the era continued for many decades after that. The reality is Castro's outreach on the continent of Africa was about saving lives and about providing hope for people in ways that the American people had no full appreciation.
Well, I can say, I think without any challenge, that the relationship in particular between South Africa and Cuba remains an extremely strong one, particularly in the area that you refer to, in that a number of young South African medical students have had their medical training in Cuba. But further than that, Cuba sacrificed Cuban lives. You remember when we went to Angola, we went up to Cabinda, and we had the opportunity to see the Cuban effort that was being undertaken in that region as part of the effort to stop Savimbi, who was supported by the Reagan administration during that time. And it was the Cuban soldiers who actually held very, very strongly. And similarly in what was then Southwest Africa, the Cubans fought with SWAPO, fought with MPLA. And so Cuba occupies a particular place in the history of the continent, particularly in this part of the continent, where they made huge sacrifices to support the liberation, in particular, of South Africa. And I had the opportunity, when Fidel Castro paid a state visit to South Africa, to see him in the National Assembly. And one of the words, what he said at that time, is that when I thought about what it was going to be like to be standing here, and I thought about what I would write, I would be writing a love letter to South Africa because of how I feel about South Africa. And he was hosted by President Mandela on that occasion. So seeing those two remarkable icons standing shoulder to shoulder, I think it's one of those moments that one will never ever forget. And Cuba occupies a particular significance to South Africa, in terms of the relationship, standing with South Africa in the darkest times of the struggle, and really, really making huge sacrifices on our behalf.
Jose, let me fast forward now to 2025, 2026, and the present era. President Donald Trump, as you know, has threatened, if he has not done it already, to close a number of embassies on the continent in various countries. There's not one embassy that represents America in the United States. Each of these countries, by and large, have a United States ambassador and representative who represents the interests of the United States. And yet, because of Donald Trump's broad stroke, he has, in his mind, in his limited thinking, begun a process of disconnecting, if you will, or ending diplomacy between many of these countries who provide critical resources to the U.S. economy and have greatly enhanced American and global ways of life. Your thoughts about America withdrawing from this part of the world?
Well, I think it'll be a huge mistake if America starts to withdraw, particularly if you get the so-called superpowers looking at the continent as their playing field once again, similar to 1887 Berlin Conference. We spoke about this a few weeks ago with Professor De Silva, and I think it would be it's a huge mistake, that withdrawal, because it's not driven by really any real strategic intent. It's more these things seem to be just driven by a whim, and that whim says, right, at this particular point we don't like you, and I mean, a comment which is quite troubling, that trying to make slavery seem bad. I don't even want to touch that one, but I think that it's something which the United States should think very much about, because Africa has been a strong ally. The continent has been. South Africa has been a strong ally to the United States, but also has relationships as a sovereign country with other countries. So we tend to now look at that as what's going to come next on the part of the United States. Yes, we see that they would like to get their hands on critical minerals, particularly from the Congo. What is that role there with with trying to achieve a peace? Is it really driven more by the objectives around acquiring, critical minerals, or is there really a strategic motivation behind that? So it's very difficult to pinpoint the rationale that exists around American foreign policy, particularly with respect to the continent. But you start to see a lot of these things even in other countries. If we look at the imposition of tariffs, again, of 50% tariffs on India. Now, what is India doing? India is moving closer to Russia and to China. So that represents a huge shift, because it seemed at the beginning of this administration that they were courting Prime Minister Narendra Modi very, very closely, but now they've gone in a totally opposite direction. So it's very difficult to pinpoint how American foreign policy is being developed, how it's being implemented, what is the end game in that, and even as recently as the meetings that were held in Washington on Monday, where I must say that it was one of what I guess my son's generation call FOMO, fear of missing out. All the European leaders ran to Washington, ostensibly to support President Zelensky, but I think more of a fear of what will Trump do if we're not there, and what will happen. So there's these kinds of actions which confuse the world, and I as someone who's been a student of history, it's almost a Neville Chamberlain moment. So we're looking at is this a moment of peace in our time, and that backfired spectacularly, because war broke out very soon after. What drove that? It was the annexation by Germany of the Sudetenland in Czechoslovakia. And now you have a similar situation where Russia was unable to win land militarily from Ukraine, but is now being handed that land on a platter. So it's a very difficult moment, and it's not just confined to Africa. I think even in Europe, you're seeing a great deal of concern and fear as to what security guarantees will the Europeans be given in light of these concessions that are made or being considered for Russia, all in an attempt to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's quite at times you want to laugh, but it's not funny.
Jose, I want to talk about for just a moment. We have about 4 minutes before the break about a framework for how we should envision as African Americans and as the United States our relationship with Africa. I remember in the late 90s and the early 2000s when the late Congressman Charles Rangel championed a bill, the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA, NAFTA for Africa. NAFTA was the North American Free Trade Agreement with Canada and with Mexico in that part in this particular hemisphere. But for Africa, they patterned an Africa Growth and Opportunity Act called AGOA. I offered an alternative piece of legislation, the most progressive ever in the Congress, called the HOPE Bill. HOPE standing for Human Rights, Opportunity, Partnership, and Empowerment. HOPE, the HOPE Bill, a framework that takes into account the history of exploitation, a framework that takes into account the history of slavery and the treatment of Africans, particularly sub-Saharan Africans and those who have been victimized by the slave trade. But now we're moving, Jose, into a completely new era, the billionaire class. You have Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world, surveying critical minerals, Donald Trump, every deal that he cuts, either with Ukraine, he always wants a critical minerals deal, even if he doesn't vie for peace. In Africa, he wants what? Critical mineral deals, even if he doesn't plan to feed the hungry or vaccinate the vaccinatedless, if you will. What, from your perspective, and I realize we only have 2 minutes and we'll talk about it more when we come forward, what would be, from your perspective, the proper framework for how America should be approaching Africa in this hour?
Well, it has to be based upon a benefit for both sides. It can't just be let's extract the minerals and let's export them. There has to be a benefit for the source of the minerals and a creation of jobs, industries in those countries from where the minerals are being extracted. So it has to be a codependent relationship. It cannot just be a relationship that's pure exploitation in the interest of making
a buck,
billionaires, trillionaires. You know, it shouldn't do that. There has to be a mechanism whereby there's an industrialization that takes place on the continent, and job creation and education and improved services. So it shouldn't just be really about what can we get out of it, and where, you know, we're the ones who are going to we'll benefit and the devil take the hindmost. That's not a relationship that's built on balance and mutual benefit.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. In this hour, our very special guest is none other than Jose Matthews. He's on with us live today from Cape Town, South Africa. We've been surveying the continent, but we're also surveying U.S. policy and the treatment of Africans in the Trump era. When we come forward, more with Jose Matthews.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The family of Black Inglewood, California Dean Dr. Kamisha Clark is suing Spartan College after she was fatally shot at work May 2nd.
And the sad part about her death was that it was completely preventable.
Her assistant was wounded and a security guard and 6-time felon was arrested. The suit claims the school was negligent in hiring him. A federal judge has dropped the most serious charges against former Louisville, Kentucky detectives Joshua Janes and Kyle Meany in the Breonna Taylor case. Janes still faces charges of falsifying the warrant and civil rights violations that could mean up to 25 years in prison. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul vowed to fight back after Texas Republicans approved a new map adding 5 GOP seats, calling it, quote, a last gasp of a desperate party, end quote. Democrats in California are also weighing similar moves backed by former President Obama. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
San Diego's events calendar is full of flavor. Dig into local wine and food festivals, treat the family to kid-inspired deals all October, and get a taste of glory at the Breeders' Cup World Championship. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tickets are on sale for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic between Grambling and Jackson State. It's the first ever HBCU football game in Vegas. The game is Saturday, October 25th at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Allegiant Stadium website. There will be at least 7 African Americans competing in this year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. 5 women and 2 men. The tournament kicks off on Sunday. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, the number 3 player in the world, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, Taylor Townsend, and Sakia Vickery. In the men's bracket, Ben Shelton, ranked number 6 in the world, and Francis Tiafoe. 2 NFL preseason games on the schedule today. Pittsburgh at Carolina on the NFL Network, and New England at the New York Giants on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
Founded in Los Angeles in 1986, litigation powerhouse Quinn Emanuel has deep roots in the Los Angeles community. Since 2007, we have litigated some of the largest fires on the West Coast. We are proud to be the only AmLaw 100 firm in the country to represent wildfire victims, giving affected individuals, families, and businesses the same focus and individualized attention we devote to our Fortune 500 clients. BTI Consulting has repeatedly recognized Quinn Emanuel as among the 4 law firms in-house counsel least liked to oppose in any litigation, and we are often deemed the most feared. And after securing over $80 billion for our clients in various matters firm-wide, we understand why. If you have been affected by the recent wildfires in Altadena and the Palisades and would like to discuss your situation further, please contact wildfire support at QuinnEmanuel.com or call us at 213-443-3050. Quinn Emanuel is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
Attorney advertising. Prior results do not guarantee future outcomes.
You gotta dip your chicken strips. Hey, this is Kiani.
And this is Tabitha.
And a little thing we love about Chick-fil-A chicken strips
is all the different sauces we can dip them in. I like to line up all my favorite sauces so that in every bite, I have a different flavor. Then with the tenderness of the chicken, the juiciness of it, it's all there.
And for me, I like to mix my sauces so I get a little tang and I get a little sweetness all in one bite.
That's what makes it for me. Like, that's what does it for me.
That's what I'm saying.
It's the summer of Chick-fil-A chicken strips and sauces. Order now on the Chick-fil-A app. Real guests paid for their testimonials.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This coming Saturday, I am speaking at the Jelani Day Foundation Fundraiser Gala. This Saturday, 8/23/25 in I believe it's Homer Glen, Illinois. This request came to me by way of KBLA and Tavis Smiley. Jelani Day, his mother, who was on our show as a very, very special guest just about a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks, she lost her son, whose career and whose life was one of great hopes and of great expectations, did not come home one night. And the investigation has led to a dead end. His body was found several days later in a river, missing organs. His face was partially removed. His car was not where it was believed that he was. And the investigation in this small town seemingly has stopped. It has drawn the attention of KBLA. It's drawn the attention of the Rainbow Push Coalition, the National Action Network, and organizations around the country. And I will be their guest speaker this week. We continue to pray for their family. And I want to let the family know that we are praying for them. Look forward to spending some time with them. And we will do that this coming Saturday. Our very special guest in this hour is Josie Matthews. Josie is one of our contributors here. We're worldwide on this thought-provoking Thursday with Josie Matthews. Josie, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Josie, I was just looking up this article that was a bit disappointing that I read earlier this week when it said Uganda will accept third-party deportees from the United States. And the article reads, Uganda will accept migrants from other countries who are deported from the United States. The Ugandan Ministry of Foreign Affairs Secretary Biageri Vincent Wazwa said the agreement was in respect to third country nationals who may not be granted asylum in the United States, but are reluctant to or may have concerns about returning to their countries of origin. White House border czar Tom Homan previously told Politico the administration is looking to make deals with many countries to accept migrants who the U.S. deports and whose home countries are either unwilling or unable to accept them back. The Trump administration has increasingly leaned on these third countries amid the president's bid to dramatically increase deportations, including hundreds of Venezuelan immigrants sent to the notorious Salvadorian CICAT prison in March. If there is a significant public threat in national security, Homan said, there's one thing for sure, they're not walking the streets of this country. We'll find a third safe nation to send them to, and we're doing it, Homan said. How is the continent reacting to the idea that it could be very well housing international immigrants who are being deported from the United States to their countries by agreement?
I think it's absolutely it's something which no one on the continent understands or accepts. We have our own issues around migration. South Africa, in particular, has significant issues around migration, illegal migration in particular, and it really boggles the mind why Uganda would allow this to happen. With each African country has got their own set of problems, as do many other countries. The Conservative government in England tried the same thing to take migrants to Rwanda, and the English courts rejected that. It's only now it seems that America is doing that. It's been sending them to El Salvador, but now seems to have found a willing ally in Uganda for whatever reasons. One wonders what's the quid pro quo that's been offered for this to happen, but it's not universally welcomed by any African country. I would imagine, but we would find ourselves in a very, very difficult situation if we start. How do you absorb those immigrants, and how, what are the numbers going to be? In particular, let's just talk about Uganda. What does it mean for Uganda? What does it mean for the economy? How are they going to be housed? What arrangements are being made for them in Uganda? So it's really a very difficult policy decision, not only by the United States, but I guess for the United States it's an easy one, because they just pack them into a C-130 and drop them off at Kampala airport and turn around and come back. We've made such an arrangement with the Ugandans based upon ABCD, and it's no longer our problem. But I would think that at some point there'll be some, in each respective country where this is put forward, I would think that there'll be internal resistance to that because it just adds more problems to the fiscus. And in South Africa, we've seen the challenges that South Africa has faced around illegal immigration in particular. And it's something that is it's become of serious concern. And in some cases, it's become a very serious election issue, as it was in the United States. So when it's not properly managed, it does become a problem. But just packing them onto a plane, as I say, and just dumping them somewhere is really, it's unheard of. And when the British tried it, it failed. And we hope that it would fail during this period.
Jose, do you see this administration eventually attempting to deport African Americans to Uganda who might have committed offenses in the United States? And hence, the question I think I would ask is, what of their constitutional rights? Would they be guaranteed certain rights under law that would be under American jurisprudence or jurisdiction in a foreign land? Or would they then be subject, if you would imagine, because you are a lawyer, would you imagine that they would be subject to Ugandan justice?
They'd be subject to Ugandan justice because they're a sovereign country with its own constitution. So they're no longer guaranteed the same rights and privileges that they are under the Constitution of the United States. And so they become, to all intents and purposes, inhabitants of that country, and have to confront the legal requirements of that specific country that they're now resident in. Just as much as if you go to the United States, you can't say, well, I've got a South African passport, therefore no. The American Constitution is supreme. Therefore, you fall under the U.S. Constitution and the laws of the United States. So the similar rule would apply to anybody who went to any country anywhere in the world. You're subject to the laws of that country however they're written.
And as you know, here in the United States, we have a constitutional prohibition against cruel and unusual punishment. So even our inmates in the worst facilities, or even in the low facilities, are entitled to medical care. They're entitled to vaccinations. If there is COVID outbreak in the nation, the inmate population is entitled to vaccinations. But what if Americans are overseas? What if men and women that we deport to foreign nations abroad don't have the medical facilities or the vaccination capacities to be able to provide them with the services that they would have received here in the United States? This is a disaster of enormous human rights consequences that we're looking at. And I'm not so sure that the Department of Homeland Security has given the kind of thought that is necessary to remove these men and women from our country and send them to foreign countries that have fundamentally different standards. Jose, there have to be some thoughts on your mind about what's taking place in the economic world with respect to tariffs and trade. I do know that we have another segment when we come forward, and I'm really interested in what your thoughts that are happening globally with respect to the nation, the economy, the world, what tariffs and the ramifications are on the continent of Africa. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, more with Jose Matthews.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You hear that? That's Mike sleeping soundly on a Sunday night. That's because Mike was smart this time. He took ZzzQuil Ultra to fall asleep fast, stay asleep longer, and get the deeply restorative sleep he needs. So now he wakes up refreshed and ready to conquer Mondays.
Let's do this Monday.
ZzzQuil Ultra. Not for colds, just for sleep. Really great sleep. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Some things can steal your sunshine. Ugh, I just got my hair done.
Sorry, the cooler's broken. Anyone see my flip-flops? Anyone?
But COVID-19 can steal a lot more.
I just took a COVID test. Ugh.
Prescription medications for COVID exist. If you test positive this summer, ask your doctor if they're right for you. Visit Pfizerforall.com/COVID-19 to learn more. Sponsored by Pfizer.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You can earn one for free in as few as 5 months online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Paul's new drone startup just lost its most genius computer scientist.
We just lost our best genius to some new genius who's got a genius new idea. I'm going to have to find a new genius or 2 half geniuses and fast.
He needs a computer scientist that can keep his startup from falling down.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. When you sponsor a job on Indeed, it's easier for talented candidates to find it, which makes it easier for you to hire them. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jr., welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. In the next hour, we will have the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. We'll be talking about the meta-logic of Dr. King's struggle against the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. And quite frankly, it is more relevant today than when it was when Dr. King said it almost 55, 60 or so years ago. Johnny Mack is our very special guest in the next hour. In this hour, our very special guest is none other than Jose Matthews. Jose is our regular contributor. He has a BA degree in honors in politics from Warwick University in England and a master's degree in public administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. He's also a lawyer. Jose, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, and it's really a pleasure to be here.
Jose, in this final segment of our show, we have approximately 10 minutes. I want you to share with our audience your expertise in the area of global economics and what we're looking at as Donald Trump, his administration, the West to an even lesser degree, but Donald Trump more specifically, is engaged in a reformation, a transformation, if you will, of the global economy.
Oh, I think that's without question. If one could take the view that what we're now seeing is a reset of the global economic system, not seen since the 1945 Bretton Woods Agreement. So he's completely upended all the norms around international trade, tariffs, and the economic system in the last 8 months, with the imposition of tariffs across the board and no country has been exempt from these. And what has happened is that you've seen different scales in terms of the application of tariffs. So Japan gets at a certain ratio, India now is at 50%, South Africa is at 30%. And it is not reflective of the size of those economies, particularly with respect to the African countries, where the economies or the scale of trade is not as great as it is between China and the United States, or India and the United States, or Japan or South Korea. So this is having a very destabilizing effect on global economic systems, and it may ultimately lead to a global recession as countries scramble to keep up. And the other danger that's created is that the tariffs that are imposed can be changed depending on a mood swing at this point. With respect to India, it seems that this is being driven by the fact that one of the large Indian conglomerates, Reliance, which imports oil from Russia, has been purchasing crude and refining crude, has been buying a huge amount of crude from Russia. And so to punish India, we're seeing an imposition of the 50% tariff hike on the Indian economy. Now, India has been a very important ally of the United States, given that where it sits in relation to China and Russia, India and its own size of its economy makes it a very significant a strategic power, as well as the conflict that potentially arose on the Indian subcontinent between Pakistan and India. So now you're pushing India away from the United States, and it seems that these policies are more driven as a counter to Russian or Chinese influence. You mentioned earlier the AGOA, which is a very important trade treaty for Africa. At the moment, most African countries are not sure if they'll be renewed in terms of AGOA and the ability to trade out. So countries like South Africa, which are exporters to the United States, particularly of agricultural products such as oranges, apples, and a wide range of other products, may see the imposition of these tariffs having a very negative effect, which will then trickle down into the rest of the economy, and you're going to see prices which have already started to spike in South Africa, spiking across the board. And ultimately, the countries will also face real fears of recession, which is not to say that we shouldn't put our own houses in order in terms of our economic performance, the management of our economies. That's important. We must do that. But at the same time, the nature of global trades means that if you sneeze, I catch a cold, and so it goes on. So we're sitting at a very, very inflection point insofar as what is going to happen next, and what's going to be the long-term impact of that when we assess it in 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now, and then 24 months from now. What will this have meant for economies across the world?
As you know, many elected officials, when they run for public office in the United States, we're often reminded that it's the economy, stupid. It's the economy, stupid. Can you share with us what the impact of some of these moves and these tariff and trade measures ultimately mean for the average person sitting around their table trying to consume just a basic meal?
Well, it means there's going to be less to go around. So if you're getting, let's say, in South African terms, 10,000 Rand a month, which is approximately call it $500 a month in income. You've got to pay your monthly school fees. In some cases, you don't own your home, you've got to pay rent, you've got to pay electricity. We don't have a very well-developed transportation system. What we have are minibuses, which are referred to as taxis. They typically carry around 10 to 12 passengers, which speed people around a city like Johannesburg. then you've got to pay for that. It's quite expensive. Our public rail system has eroded over the years, so it's not been as reliable as it has been. So you've got to spend on transportation. You've got to then purchase the staples, which are bread, milk, meat, or what we call, it's a form of, it's almost like a grits, but we call it millipap. You've got to purchase that, which is a staple diet. So you're stretching, and then if you've got a family of 4, you're stretching that, and it's having a huge impact. And then it's putting factories out of business. And what is then happening is that our unemployment rate goes up higher. So the consequences downstream tend to be quite severe, even in the short term. And petrol prices go up, so the taxi drivers must put up their prices. So you're going to see less in your pocket at the end of the month, because you've got to pay for essential services, you've got to pay for your kids to go to school, you've got to pay for electricity, and there are a number of other costs that are related that tend to shrink what you're getting in your daily or in your monthly income. And that's as a consequence of the global economic system. It does have an effect down. So it's absolutely right. Your friend James Carville, I think, and his group are quite right. It is the economy, stupid, and it does. It's what talks to what allows a society to function, and to function at an optimum level is how the economy is run. What is the impact on the economy, and citizens can enjoy a reasonable. Absolutely, poverty does trickle down. And you see that wealth is escalating, and the number of wealthy are increasing. The so-called beautiful bill is not beautiful to people in the Mississippi Delta or in the bayous of Louisiana, or in parts of Lagos or Johannesburg. It's going to have a severe impact on them, and I think that we'll start to see those challenges in the foreseeable future.
In this moment, I'm thinking about something Martin Luther King Jr. said when he talked about the inescapable common mutuality, the fact that we share a common bond with people throughout the world. And in a real sense, while we hear these large economic terms that often deal with numbers that the average person on the planet cannot fathom, this boils down to whether or not men and women and families can eat. It boils down to whether or not they can take home enough money to provide for their families, to pay their basic utilities, to afford their mortgages, or for that matter, to pay their rent. And when we see, for example, here in the United States, the president of the United States rounding up homeless people in Washington, D.C., and threatening to round up homeless people in different cities throughout the United States and discard them, Hulsey, I know you've been to these cities. You've been through these cities here in the United States. It's as if the problem goes away simply because we cannot see it. Michael Harrington said that America has the best dressed poverty in the world, that we go to work every day, that we live every day, and we look very good every day. But the fact of the matter is, so many millions of people find themselves destitute. Dad referred to them in 1984 as the derelicts of destitution. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Hulsey Matthews has been our very special guest on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. When we come forward, we'll be in the World House with Johnny Mack. Thank you, Hulsey.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. The family of Black Inglewood, California Dean Dr. Kamisha Clark is suing Spartan College after she was fatally shot at work May 2nd.
And the sad part about her death was that it was completely preventable.
Her assistant was wounded and a security guard and 6-time felon was arrested. The suit claims the school was negligent in hiring him. A federal judge has dropped the most serious charges against former Louisville, Kentucky detectives Joshua Janes and Kyle Meany in the Breonna Taylor case. Janes still faces charges of falsifying the warrant and civil rights violations that could mean up to 25 years in prison. And New York Governor Kathy Hochul vowed to fight back after Texas Republicans approved the new map adding 5 GOP seats, calling it, quote, a last gasp of a desperate party, end quote. Democrats in California are also weighing similar moves backed by former President Obama. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
San Diego's events calendar is full of flavor. Dig into local wine and food festivals, treat the family to kid-inspired deals all October, and get a taste of glory at the Breeders' Cup World Championship. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tickets are on sale for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic between Grambling and Jackson State. It's the first ever HBCU football game in Vegas. The game is Saturday, October 25th at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Allegiant Stadium website. There will be at least 7 African Americans competing in this year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. 5 women and 2 men. The tournament kicks off on Sunday. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, the number 3 player in the world, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, Taylor Townsend, and Sakia Vickery. In the men's bracket, Ben Shelton, ranked number 6 in the world, and Francis Tiafoe. 2 NFL preseason games on the schedule today. Pittsburgh at Carolina on the NFL Network, and New England at the New York Giants on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At the tone, please record your message.
You ready?
Drop it!
Mr. Tavis Smiley, preach it. Thank you, man. Politics in this country is crazy. You put things in perspective that even I didn't. The right is playing fast and loose with facts and scapegoating everyone under the sun, especially black and brown people. As a white man, I do not agree with this, and I am on my black and brown brothers and sisters' side. Fight the good fight. You know that I am part of the resistance. Let's fight the power.
Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. This is our second hour, and we are now officially in the World House. In the second hour on this program, on Thought Provoking Thursdays, our principal guest is Johnny Mack. Johnny's well-traveled throughout America, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, explicating Dr. King's call for to restructure the social edifice and its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism, with a revolution of values that are effected through peaceable power, building communities without boundaries. Johnny Mack is one of our most exciting guests because he forces us every week to reflect. But he's also the sum of our shows for the week as we reflect upon Dr. King's work. My dad shared with me a long time ago that when you're sharpening your pencil, you lose some good wood and some good lead, but as long as you get to the point. And that's what we do with Johnny Mack on Thursdays. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, thank you. It's great to be here.
I'm so honored that you're here with us this week. Johnny, I was reading in chapter 15 of Dr. King's book, The Strength to Love, one of the best books, I believe, for reflection that have ever been written. In the last paragraph of the final chapter of that book, he says this: the past decade has been a most exciting one. In spite of the tensions and uncertainties of this period, something profoundly meaningful is taking place. Old systems of exploitation and oppression are passing away. New systems of justice and equality are being born. In a real sense, this is a great time to be alive. Therefore, I am not yet discouraged about the future. Granted that the easygoing optimism of yesterday is impossible. Granted that we face a world crisis that leaves us standing so often amid the surging murmur of life's restless sea. Every crisis has both its dangers and its opportunities. It can spell either salvation or doom. In a dark, confused world, the kingdom of God may yet reign in the hearts of men. Johnny Mac, these are dark times. And 60 years ago, Martin Luther King Jr. was encouraging an optimism that in this moment, it seems is lost. It is lost because the forces of evil, if you will, I try to give the demon a name, are so overwhelming that it's hard to center one's self in the idea of, Dr. King referred to it as the kingdom of God. And I'm assuming the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven, which is not far from the idea of the world house, clearly complicated by the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. I want to press you today to find out if there's any optimism left.
Well, is there optimism left? Of course there is. The question is, where do we find it? Martin Luther King Jr. in the mid-20th century was the voice of optimism in so many ways, witnessed by the quote you just read. It's interesting, Jesse, that in that quote, King says, "I am not yet discouraged." There's something about that yet, as if in his own prescient way, as he was so often, he anticipated what might be that is now, which we are living. A world where, as is suggested in your question, there doesn't seem to be much optimism or hope. But if we are to find optimism and if we are to find hope, we have to find it in ourselves individually and collectively, don't we? And I think that is what King represented. In his greatest hours of despair, it is the hope that he found in the heaven that he sought. And it was his indefatigable faith that justice would ultimately prevail, that arc of the universe would bend in that direction of justice. And so the question is, do we hold that same hope? Do we have that same faith? If we do, why is it that we do? And if we don't, why don't we? And I think exploring both of those questions in our conversation might be helpful, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special guest in this hour is none other than Johnny Mac. Johnny, let me ask you this question, and I know we have about a minute before we come to break. In a previous show, you talked about us bending the arc of justice. It just doesn't bend on its own. We have to bend it ourselves.
Absolutely, Jesse. Of course, those who believe that the arc of justice is bent by the hand of God, we certainly respect and honor their point of view and that faith. On the other hand, I think God works in cooperation with man, with humankind. And we have a responsibility to bend that arc. And the question is, how do we bend it? Again, it has to do with hope and it has to do with faith.
My thoughts are the same. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're talking with Johnny Mac today on the World House. Johnny has traveled the world. He has studied the metalogic of Martin Luther King Jr., and his thoughts matter now more than ever. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger.
Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love, guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay, things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
Charmin Ultra Strong. You can use less, better than the rest. Charmin Ultra Strong. Your booty past the clean test. Salmon weave texture, it's the best. Study up, teach a lesson on fresh. Your booty past the clean test. Yes, sir. Charmin Ultra Strong.
Charmin Ultra Strong with diamond weave texture cleans better than the leading one-ply brand, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
Oh, could this vintage store be any cuter?
Right? And the best part, they accept Discover.
Accept Discover? In a little place like this? I don't think so, Jennifer.
Oh, yeah, huh? Discover's accepted where I like to shop. Come on, baby, get with the times.
Right. So we shouldn't get the parachute pants?
These are making a comeback. I think.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide, based on the February 2025 Nielsen report.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest at this hour is none other than Johnny Mack. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse. Great to be here.
Johnny, I was thinking about legend. It is believed to be legend that Martin Luther King Jr. kept a copy of Howard Thurman's book, Jesus and the Disinherited, with him at all times. I'm reflecting in this moment from the previous segment about your having turned the conversation to the inward journey. And Thurman did write a collection of essays on the inward journey, and it's pretty impossible for me to assume that King, who had such high regard for Thurman, would not have read the inward journey. And one of the key themes in the book is the quest for meaning, for understanding, for fulfillment, love, peace, and God. The book clearly explores the fundamental human aspirations through insightful reflections in a very, very poetic language. But Thurman is also suggesting that the connection between the human spirit and the divine can also, from the inward journey, lead to an action in the present that is divinely inspired to do justice, to do right, to bend the arc. It's not just without this inward journey, it's just a political act. It's just a political expression. We're just liberal activity. We've got to stand up and fight today. But on the inward journey, there is a reflection of meaning, understanding, fulfillment, love, peace, and God that is part of the journey as well. And certainly the metalogic that you have articulated is a reflection that Dr. King gave thought to.
But, Jesse, Thurman was really a giant in so many ways. I have that book, Jesus and the Disinherited. I'm sure it's on your library shelf as well. And as I think about that book and about his own life, one well worth studying, I'm impressed that life really was very different then. And I often wonder what people like Howard Thurman and Martin Luther King Jr. would say, and how they would think about the world as we live it today, as we deal with the exigencies, if you will, of life. You mentioned that Thurman's book talks about, this inwardness and one's reflection on that inward life in the press of today's world, with so much information coming at us so fast from so many different directions, with electronic partners that we carry in our pockets that do more to shape our thinking and our inward lives than we'd like to admit, one wonders if we do have the time to reflect on the things that Thurman was talking about. And so I wonder, what is it about our current culture? Culture is so important here. It's an operative word in the challenges and opportunities that we confront. But does our current culture allow us to really have that inward thought, that inward reflection?
I don't think so. I mean, I just don't see so. I don't think so. I think there is so much coming at us so quick that there is an attention span problem, like a deficit disorder, that if you don't carve out time for the space for the inward journey, if you don't my dad used to say when he spoke in elementary schools and high schools, that parents should tell their children to turn that television off at least 2 hours a night, to study, to focus, to have their lessons learned and taught and debated and worked through with their parents, that they should sit down and have dinner with their families at least an hour or maybe 30 minutes or so every night, that we have to consciously carve out the time to engage in the reflective journey. I mean, if not, you are simply overwhelmed by the number of phone calls, by the number of text messages, by the number of Facebook posts, by the infinite number of television stations and programming and movies and content that exists, that there is not an hour or a moment where the inward journey or the reflection occurs. I mean, cell phones going off in the middle of church services, in the middle of synagogue services, in the mosques, because we find ourselves completely distracted. And then, let me take a leap here. When the distraction ends up in the highest office in the land, it only compounds the distraction. So how do we recover that time? How do we recover that space? How do we recover the inward journey? Because in the final analysis, beyond the philosophical conversation, I want to do something. I want to get out here and protest. I want to fight. I'm trying to find the right way to fight back. I want to encourage people to register and vote and take nonviolent action. But I don't also want to be on a full-time inward journey that leads to, Johnny, inaction.
Yes. So we're so otherworldly mindful that we're no earthly good. Huh?
Yeah.
I think, Jesse, we talked last week, or perhaps we mentioned it the week before, the book by Yanis Varoufakis called Techno-Feudalism. It's really worth reading. It's a very important book because he talks about how today's technology has captured, my words, not his, but the meaning I think of his thought, has captured our imaginations and even our own thinking processes, and is forming and shaping us, how we think, how we interact with our own selves, with each other, and with the very system that he is cautioning us to be wary of. And so we are captivated by, and at the same time captured by, these new technologies, going back to Thurman and King, who at best were confronted with radio waves and television waves. Their greatest attention, they had to choose between three modest cable networks.
And AM and FM radio.
AM and FM, whatever that is, right? Whatever that is. And so, Jesse, we are challenged. And we who talk about these things, I believe, have to find ways to make them simple enough for those who listen to us and others who are a bit better informed or focused on these challenges and opportunities that shape our lives. At the end of the day, remember, we're arguing that the arc of the universe is bent by us. And we ain't doing much bending, it seems, especially if we're not focused on the fact that the arc even exists, let alone how we might bend it. So there's great work to do just in how we are imposed upon by today's technologies.
I see some of that work occurring in some schools across the country that are now banning cell phones. I see some of that work in some evangelical communities where they are insisting on the 10 Commandments being discussed in classrooms. I think we ought to discuss all religious systems and engage in that moment of reflection. I don't think we should impose prayer on anyone. But I do think that there are movements afoot at a young age, encouraged obviously by adults who have seen the arc of misinformation, the arc of attention span limitations, to recover this kind of critical spiritual connection that allows people to make judgments. I'd like to make sure that I'd like to know that they make those judgments without racial bias, of course. I mean, to the extent that we can inculcate young people with the idea that love is central to the binding of the universe itself and not something that is unique to a particular racial group, but indeed an expression that we saw in such a profound way evidenced on the Jericho Road. Our love for our neighbor. So I can't help all the way here in Chicago when Donald Trump throws homeless people or rounds homeless people up in Washington, D.C. I can't afford to not ask myself the question, what next? And where are they? And what are we doing to rehabilitate them or to provide them the decent, safe, and affordable housing that they need? Certainly moving them out of sight and out of mind, Johnny, is not the elimination of the problem.
Of course not. Of course it is not. And I think you mentioned earlier about the interconnectivity among all humanity, which is something King fostered and reminded us of. We seem to forget that, Jesse. We live in a neoliberal world of consumerism and meism, if I can use that term, and somehow it's looked down upon if we aren't producing our own, when the very systems in which we are forced to operate and forced to live don't provide the opportunities for us to provide for ourselves. Bending the arc of justice is creating those opportunities. It's creating a social order and a social structure that gives people a fair chance at life, not just making a living.
I don't disagree with that. I just think that the value system itself is about getting an education, getting as much as I possibly can, working my way towards retirement, not caring about my neighbor at all, spending the rest of my life on a cruise ship, and not having to stop long enough to even look at humanity on life's Jericho Road. And I think when Dr. King makes his argument about loving your neighbor and about the Samaritan, this is a question that is presented to him by a lawyer. And the lawyer, trying to catch Jesus in a debate, asks the question, what is the law? And Jesus responds to love one God and your neighbor as yourself. And rather than accepting the answer, the lawyer, busy as hell, turns to Jesus and says, well, who's my neighbor? Since you got all the answers. And then rather than argue with the lawyer, Jesus places the answer on a road where a stranger had fallen, and the Samaritan and the priest and the Levite all had the opportunity to walk by. But it is the Samaritan, whose name we do not know, that defines the ethic. His compassion, his empathy, his willingness to put his schedule aside to engage in a direct human contact with a human being who had fallen, beaten, and robbed on life's Jericho road. The way in which that crime, Johnny, takes place today may not be physical violence. It may be spiritual violence. It may present itself in any number of different ways. Either way, it is violent. And the Samaritan not only offers the man some service and some help, but he takes them, puts him on his horse, takes him to a nearby hospital or an inn, and promises to pay any additional services upon his return from being so busy. This ethic for King not only defined what he thought the great society or the world house should look like, it was also at the center of the ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. And I just don't see people having time for that. Now they might flick a coin to a beggar. They see someone walking up to their window. They pull their window up, and the rounding up of the homeless in Washington, D.C. just makes me sick to my stomach.
Yes. And you know, we must be quick, Jesse, to recognize that the Good Samaritan, this unnamed soul who takes the time out of his busy day to attend to the needs of one who has fallen, is looked upon when King analyzes this. And King says, and we often miss this, Jesse, not only does the Samaritan act individually upon another individual's need, but King says that true compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar. Stay with me, Jesse. True compassion is more than flinging a coin to a beggar, as if he might be even chiding the Samaritan just a bit. But Good Samaritan, after you have done all that you've done, you are not yet finished. King says it is recognizing that the very edifice that produced the beggar must be restructured. The bending of the ark, Jesse, and the ark is an edifice. An ark is an edifice. It is a human-made, in this case, implement of life. King is saying this edifice must be restructured. And we collective as Samaritans, must bend that ark by restructuring the edifice that produces the beggar.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack on Thursdays as we bring our week to our own responsibilities and take our inward journey. We simply can't do it without Johnny Mack. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Dr. Johnny Mack in the World House.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker says Illinois cannot bail out Chicago Public Schools' $734 million deficit.
We should try to find the money, but we don't have those resources today.
Black Mayor Brandon Johnson and the teachers union want $1.6 billion more from the state, but Pritzker says the funds are not there. The Justice Department is investigating Fed Governor Lisa Cook, who is Black, after a Trump-era referral alleging she claimed 2 homes as her primary residence. A letter urged Fed Chair Jerome Powell to fire her, though the Supreme Court has said board members are protected from political terminations. And Black DC Mayor Muriel Bowser says she'll cooperate with a Department of Justice probe into the city's crime stats, rejecting President Trump's claim they were altered. She noted violent crime has dropped the past 2 years and pushed back on calling the federal crackdown a takeover, though she opposes armed troops in the Capitol. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
San Diego's events calendar is full of flavor. Dig into local wine and food festivals, treat the family to kid-inspired deals all October, and get a taste of glory at the Breeders' Cup World Championship. Plan your trip now at sandiego.org/awesome all year. Funded in part with City of San Diego Tourism Marketing District Assessment Funds.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Tickets are on sale for the Las Vegas HBCU Classic between Grambling and Jackson State. It's the first ever HBCU football game in Vegas. The game is Saturday, October 25th at Allegiant Stadium, home of the NFL Las Vegas Raiders. 3 p.m. kickoff. Tickets are available on Ticketmaster or the Allegiant Stadium website. There will be at least 7 African Americans competing in this year's U.S. Open tennis tournament in New York City. 5 women and 2 men. The tournament kicks off on Sunday. On the women's side, Coco Gauff, the number 3 player in the world, Venus Williams, Madison Keys, Taylor Townsend, and Sakia Vickery. In the men's bracket, Ben Shelton, ranked number 6 in the world, and Francis Tiafoe. 2 NFL preseason games on the schedule today. Pittsburgh at Carolina on the NFL Network, and New England at the New York Giants on Prime Video. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
As we go a little something like this.
Hey, it is me, D.L. Huger, and I am thrilled to be heard weekdays in my hometown on KBLA Talk 1580. So check out the D.L. Huger Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 p.m. exclusively on KBLA Talk 1580. We got a whole lot to talk about, let me tell you. That's like a real.
Break out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
Tavis Smiley is now ranked number 16 nationally and the highest rated talk show hosted by an African American on the 2025 Talkers Heavy 100 list of the most important talk radio hosts in the nation. Last year, Tavis ranked number 33 and the year before, number 45. The Tavis Smiley Show has rapidly expanded its national syndication to now include nearly 50 radio stations across the country and counting. Congratulations, Tavis.
Yeah.
Are you ready to be a part of the conversation that will help shape our nation's future? Get ready to join us for the Left Coast Forum, Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech, where progressive voices will come together to tackle the issues that matter most to working families across Los Angeles and beyond. From economic justice to climate action, from healthcare to housing, we're bringing together the brightest minds and most passionate advocates for real solutions and real change. With workshops, 2 major keynote addresses, and a closing reception with great music and good food. It's the Left Coast Forum, where your voice matters and your ideas take action. Saturday, October 25th at LA Trade Tech. Brought to you by KBLA Talk 1580 and the LA Progressive. The future won't wait, and neither should you. Mark your calendar now to be there and be heard. Stay tuned to KBLA Talk 1580 for more details.
The following is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Getaways with the purpose of soliciting sales of vacation ownership. For complete details, please visit fvgradio.com. If you want a 100% complimentary stay at a luxury resort in Cancun, airfare not included, then Family Vacation Getaways is your ticket to paradise. See website for complete details. We're giving away 5 days and 4 nights to the first 50 callers who can name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. An animal that lays eggs and is not a bird. Do you know it? Call now, 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431. You're also eligible for an exciting bonus vacation to Orlando, Florida for just $498. And don't worry about anything ruining your plans. We can extend your travel up to 18 months. Name an animal that lays eggs and is not a bird, and get a complimentary Cancun resort stay and an optional bonus vacation to Orlando for just $498. What are you waiting for? Call 800-868-6431, 800-868-6431, and give us your answer. The proceeding is not a contest and is a paid advertisement by Family Vacation Giveaways and not sponsored by this program or its affiliates.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Jackson Jr. on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our very special guest in this hour is Johnny Mack. Johnny is the president of the World House Project. In the final segment of our show, I do want to talk with him more about that and how we can be supportive of the World House Project. But in this deep conversation, Johnny, that we've begun, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Jesse.
Johnny, I want to take my shot at the edifice. Dr. King, in a speech called How Should a Christian View Communism? Again, I'm coming at the edifice now. He says in the first chapter of that speech, first, communism is based on a materialistic and humanistic view of life and history. According to communist theory, matter, not mind or spirit, speaks the last word in the universe. Such a philosophy is avowedly secularistic and atheistic. Under it, God is merely a figment of the imagination, religion is a product of fear and ignorance, and the church is an invention of the rulers to control the masses. Moreover, communism, like humanism, thrives on the grand illusion that man, unaided by any divine power, can save himself and usher in a new society. Cold atheism, wrapped in the garments of materialism, communism provides no place for God or Christ. So let me be clear, I am not a communist. And then increasingly amongst young people, there are these labels being thrown around in the modern democratic politic, democratic socialism. Some would argue that Jesus of Nazareth himself was a democratic socialist because the love your neighbor as yourself, taking into account their material needs, is a concern for both self and neighbor that establishes some form of equal justice between the two. No one goes to bed hungry tonight. No one goes to bed without a bed. No one goes to bed without a roof over their head. Now, I'm not a democratic socialist because I do believe in free enterprise. And I do believe that certain innovation and the uniqueness of what I bring to the table makes me, yes, social in my interaction because of my faith, but it leaves enough room for me to be unique in my own inventions and my own thinking and what God has given me or given you or given any one of us as a unique gift. So we're not just part of a commune or of a group whole. We do have these individual talents, right? So democratic socialism doesn't completely work for me, but I am a constitutionalist. I do believe that if we live under a constitution that guarantees everyone the right to clean, safe, and sustainable environment, the right to decent, safe, and affordable housing, the right to health care of equal high quality, the right to an education of equal high quality, equality for women, that I can accomplish all of the above under a constitutional government without the labels of being called something I'm not and still being true to my God and to myself. Johnny, I think that I've just restructured the social edifice.
Well, it's certainly one worldview, isn't it?
It is a worldview.
Yes. In fact, communism, democracy, socialism, these social orders are really the edifice and how we structure them. Every ideology, Jesse, is rooted in some basic set of values. And for me, it is not so much the ideology, whether you call it communism or socialism or capitalism, which is an economic system. Communism is both a social political system and maybe arguably a economic system.
But it's definitely not a religion. It does not believe in God.
Well, perhaps so. But here's the point that I'm taking too long to make. These are all rooted in some values. And when I think about King, yes, again, he was a man of faith, deeply, deeply a man of faith, and a believer in the Christian ethic. When King calls for a restructuring of our social order, what he calls for is a revolution of values. I mean, think about that. When he talks about the true compassion of flinging a coin to a beggar and making obsolete the edifice that produces beggars, he looks to values, a revolution of values. And so what are those values? Are there values, Jesse, that are common across ideologies, across religions, that we can all subscribe to, irrespective of our religious, social, political orientations? For me, the genius of King was seeing through all of the fog of different points of view about religion and social order and social proclivities, and finding the common denominator that brings all humanity together.
I'd like to strike the balance, Johnny, because, you know, there's a part of me on the inward journey that would have me standing in the middle of an airport with a little gold outfit on and some tied up sandals, playing a tambourine and singing Hare Krishna songs. The inward journey can lead there, right? Or I could be in the seated pose position and in a yoga studio all day, engaged in an inward journey. But, you know, there are some things in this journey that require my inward journey to become at some point in time an outward expression. And I try my best to conduct it on the high plane of spiritual discipline, to take action, to do something about bending the arc. Because of course there are extremes in this. I mean, I can't fault a priest who wants to spend their entire life in a church, or in a or a sister who wants to spend their life in a convent and engage in an inward journey. But you know, when you step out here in these streets, there is something else going on, and it does require an engagement with your neighbor. You don't get to hide from your neighbor. You have to engage them. How do you ever know what kind of condition that they're suffering under or what they're going through without that engagement? And so beyond the inward reflection, which is one extreme, there is a synthesis and a hybrid, Johnny, that says, I'm going to stand up for Rosa Parks today. I'm going to fight for Breonna Taylor today. I'm not going to let the injustice that is in front of me get away from me today. I am going to take a stand. I'm going to help this person that I see, and that there is a fulfillment in my own destiny in the action that I took to help them.
Yeah. And again, Jesse, you argue that inward reflection ought to drive us. Indeed, as we go throughout our busy days, Jesse, one wonders how much time is given to inward reflection. As we lay our heads on a sleepy pillow at night, yes, we might take a moment to reflect on the day that has just passed, or the one that is yet to come. But I'm also reminded that we act in accordance with the truth as we perceive it to be. That is, what is inside of us, how we feed our thoughts and our minds, becomes the fodder that burns, the engine in our lives for that active outward work that you were just talking about. And so what is it that we are feeding our minds with? And how are we acting when we're not consciously reflecting inwardly? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So what are we feeding? And how are we feeding those inward thoughts?
Well, they're hungry. I do know that they need to be fed, and I do know that they need to be processed, and I do know that we need to do something. And I listen to, Tavis and others on the radio station all the time, encouraging action, whether it's in Altadena, whether it's the actions that I encourage on the south side of Chicago, whether it's the actions to do justice, not just to say justice, but to do justice, to encourage justice, to not turn a blind eye to the strangers on life's Jericho roads. There is something that we can do. We can stop. We can be patient. We can be compassionate. We can be empathetic. And being an empath is different than being a sympath. Empathy means you give of yourself. Sympathy means it's something that we acknowledge, but we keep it moving. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. When we come forward, we're going to learn more about the World House Project from Johnny Mack.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Imagine a world without heart disease and stroke, where every person has the chance to live a full and healthy life. Join us for a walk to save lives at the American Heart Association's Greater Los Angeles Heart and Stroke Walk, Saturday, September 20th at the Rose Bowl. Every step made and every dollar raised means more people learning CPR, more life-saving research, and more time with the ones we love. Sign up at heartwalkla.org. The LA Heart and Stroke Walk is sponsored by Optum, UCLA Health, Keck Medicine of USC, and Dignity Health.
Agnes was in deep trouble with the IRS.
I owed the IRS a lot of money. I did not know what I was going to do. I was scared.
Agnes caught a break and found out about Optima Tax Relief.
When I called Optima Tax, they guaranteed me that they were going to help me out the best that they can. And they did.
Optima stopped the IRS.
No more telephone calls, no more letters. Optima Tax took care of everything. I can finally sleep at night. I was stress-free.
Agnes was finally free from her IRS nightmare.
It was like a burden was lifted off of me, and it was a great feeling.
Are you in deep trouble with the IRS? You might want to listen to Agnes.
I refer Optima Tax Relief to anyone because they got me debt-free from owing the IRS any more money.
Call Optima right now for your free consultation. Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Los Angeles Regional Food Bank is on a mission to fight hunger and provide nutritious food to those in need across our community. They partner with federal, state, and local programs advocating for better policies and funding for critical hunger relief programs like Cal Fresh, the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and the Child and Adult Care Food Program. The food bank works with coalitions and local representatives to make sure hunger is addressed in every district of LA County. They also run nutrition education campaigns, raise hunger awareness, and source nutritious food for distribution, all while supporting regulations that allow food pantries to operate safely. Want to help? Visit lafoodbank.org or call 323-234-3030 to volunteer or find a food bank near you. Together, we can ensure that no one goes hungry in Los Angeles County. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
Dr. Johnny Mack is our very special guest in this hour on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. Johnny is the principal and managing partner of the Johnny Mack Group, LLC, and the founding director of the World House Project. Johnny has dedicated his entire life to fulfilling this aspect of Martin Luther King Jr.'s work, which is to reshape the social edifice upon which our value systems are created. Johnny, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Always good to be here. Thank you, Jesse.
Johnny, share with us more about your thoughts behind the creation of the World House Project and how we can be supportive and its goals.
Well, thank you, Jesse. The World House Project obviously is rooted in King's vision of the World House and his admonition that we have to find ways to live together as brothers, and we'll add sisters here, or we would perish as fools. And living together in peace is what King had in mind. And so the question is, how do we do that? King did give us some mile markers and roadmaps. And as he stood the mountaintop and looked over, I believe not only did he see the promised land, but he saw this completed world house that we are now called to construct. And so the World House Project is actually a international non-governmental organization that was launched from Stanford University. Dr. Claiborne Carson and I collaborated at Stanford, where he, of course, was the director at the request of Mrs. Coretta Scott King of the King Papers Project. And I met Clay when I was at the King Center, where I served there for 6 years as its chief financial officer and chief administrative officer, eventually. But Clay and I organized this program at this Freeman Spogli Institute at Stanford, where we taught, researched, and wrote about King's ideas of nonviolent social change and social movement, and of course, the World House. I launched the program from Stanford as this international NGO. And what do? The World House Project is a gathering of individuals, groups, organizations who subscribe to King's call for living in this world house as brothers and sisters, and doing those things that create this idea of a safe place, of a place where we can all live together in peace. And so it's a gathering of activists, of academics, scholars, elected officials who do several things. There are three fundamental program pillars of the World House. First is the global network, the World House Global Network, which is a global, as the name suggests, network of these individuals, groups, and organizations who come together in working groups all around the globe to work on projects that help to realize in their communities the World House, and then connecting the dots of these groups into one global network. Then there's the World House Institutes of Research, Education, and Social Action, where we research, educate on, and provide social action toward addressing the challenges and opportunities that militate or fight against peace. And then the third pillar is the World House Forum, which is a biannual gathering. If you think about Davos and the World Economic Forum, it's a gathering every other year of these groups of this network who come and meet in plenary session to discuss world challenges and opportunities. In between those years, Jesse, the World House Project holds regional conferences. In fact, I fly to the DRC, to the DR Congo next week to hold one of those conferences. There, we'll have Martin Luther King III, who will speak at this conference. The president of the DR Congo, President Tshisekedi, will host us in the DRC for this event. We'll also be in Kenya and then to Somaliland before this particular trip is over, fostering this work of the World House. We'll hold conferences in Mexico, Delhi, Kenya, London, here in Atlanta, in 2026. And we'd welcome your listeners to join us at the World House Project. They can find us at theworldhouseproject.org. Once again, if I may, Jesse, our website is theworldhouseproject.org.
Is there a phone number, Johnny, that connects us to the worldhouseproject.org?
There isn't a phone number, no.
Okay.
But again, you can find us at that website.
Okay, and we can also provide donations and financial support to your efforts as well.
At theworldhouseproject.org. You can get all the information about our work. We're a nonprofit, a tax-exempt organization, and we would welcome your reaching out to us. You want to talk to us, email us. You can email director@theworldhouseproject.org or info@theworldhouseproject.org. And we would be delighted to respond.
Thank you, Johnny. I wanted to take that moment, and I'm going to do it semi-regularly on the show, because I want you to understand, particularly our brothers and sisters who are within the reach of our voices, that our conversations are more than philosophical. That Johnny's out here in the world. He is traveling the world, identifying people and working with people who share a common vision that our King left us. It might be, which I think we heard in the first hour, easier to do in some other parts of the world than it actually is here in the United States at this particular hour. But our King had that kind of reach. The global consequences of Dr. King's voice, of his message, of his love and his ministry are so profound and so extraordinary that while we may be used to our guy, Dr. King, locally, around the country, around the world, he is profoundly revered as being a turning point in human understanding. And I can't say enough about that. I had a guest on our program yesterday, Dr. James Zogby, and we were talking about the Gaza and Israel, and we were talking about the Middle East generally, but more specifically that conflict. And I raised this question: why has the region not produced another Dr. King? Why is there no one who, Johnny, is risking for peace? Why is there no king force emerging out of the Gaza and out of the West Bank? And given the history of Israeli oppression, quite frankly, throughout the history of Jewish people, why have they not produced a new Moses? So these leaders come from a particular repressive context. And that's really what Howard Thurman meant when he said that we were a people whose backs were against the wall. And certainly Jesus of Nazareth came into the world recognizing that he was born too with his back against the world. Johnny, we have about a minute and a half left. A word of hope.
Yes. Jesse, I do think that that the world still produces kings and Gandhis and Mandelas. They produce Coretta Scott Kings still.
Yes.
And I think that the spirit of those individuals can be found in the work of so many young who are finding their way, and who, as John Lewis said, who are getting in the way, getting into trouble. I think the diffusion of communications is part of the problem, that we don't focus singularly in the way that technologies caused us to do in our past.
It's Thought-Provoking Thursdays with Johnny Mack on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Until next time, thank you, Johnny Mack, for spending this day with us.
Thank you, Jesse.
God bless you all. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker